So we have yet another edition of Europeans realizing just how strange the USA actually is. I know that given the whole political situation in the US, now is not necessarily the best time for Europeans to visit the USA, but there are some Europeans who are still taking that risk or who have been there since before this administration was in place. Bearing that in mind, we're going to see some very fascinating takes in this video. So without further ado, let's get into this first video.
European immigrant living in the US, and these are a few of the differences that I noticed between Eastern Europe, specifically my country Hungary, and the US. Part 2. Another thing that pisses me off, thank God my American family, they're like all aboard, but we don't do shoes in the house in Eastern Europe, and I would say not even in Europe. Like, I lived in England, we didn't do shoes in the house.
So this one has come up in a few of my recent videos, but in case you haven't had the chance to watch those videos yet, this seems to be more on a case-by-case basis, because when I was in the Netherlands, at least the people that I was staying with, shoes in the house was completely normal. It was completely normal and acceptable to wear shoes in the house. Growing up in the US, I would say that we didn't wear shoes in the house for the first part of my childhood. I would say up until we got hardwood floors, we never really wore shoes in the house. Definitely never wore shoes on the carpet. But once they put hardwood floors in, I feel like my parents kind of stopped caring about it. And even they wear shoes in the house now. Maybe more so my dad and I. Whereas my mom still, I guess because she grew up in the Philippines, she just doesn't do it. But I don't know if it's a climate specific thing or what it is, because I've heard that, at least from one person who commented on one of my recent videos, that generally in colder climates where it's more rainy and muddy and snowy, things of that nature, people will take their shoes off before coming in the house because they don't want to track mud in the house, which makes sense until you think about the fact that the area of the world where this seems to be the most prominent is Southeast Asia, and rest assured, they don't get snow here. They do not get any snow here. It is, what is it? October 6th as I'm filming this video, and it is currently 25 degrees. 25 degrees Celsius at 7:43 p.m. So you can see the sun is already down. It's 25 degrees. It's warm. It is warm here. There is no snow. So let me know how your household approaches this.
Taking off your shoes, it's so strange. And like, some people even like they go to their room in shoes. Like, what if you're taking the car, so like you're not walking, but like you're still gonna walk in like a grocery store, you're not taking off your shoes? Why? What we also do is, as soon as we get home.
Okay, so one thing I will say, I draw the line at wearing shoes in bed. Now, for what it's worth, in the place that we're in right now, my girlfriend and I do not wear shoes inside of the actual apartment. We take our shoes off at the front because there's no reason to wear shoes in the apartment. Why would we want to wear shoes in the apartment? It's more comfortable to not have shoes on. But I have seen people wear shoes in bed, and I, for the life of me, do not understand that. I will never, ever wear shoes in bed, regardless of the circumstances.
We change into like our home clothes. Cannot even imagine sitting on my bed in jeans. Those are my outside clothes. I have my clothes that I wear at home, and they're usually like, you know, very casual, like sweats and a t-shirt. And I have slippers. Like, that's just how I always lived, and that's how the majority of people in Europe do it. Public transportation.
Okay, so I think the reason why that's the case, the reason why Europeans tend to have a separate set of home clothes and outside clothes, is because Europeans tend to dress with fashion in mind. And fashionable clothes tend to not be very comfortable. At least in my experience. When I take the time and the effort to put on a nice outfit, by the time I get back home, I want to take that outfit off. I do not feel like walking around in some chinos and an overcoat and a turtleneck at home because it's not comfortable. I want to wear sweatpants. I want to wear a t-shirt, a tank top. A lot of times I don't even wear a shirt. I might walk around in my underwear. But I know that might be a little TMI, but I'm saying this to say that it's pretty obvious why that's the case. It's because Europeans just have a much more elevated sense of fashion, and as they say, beauty is pain.
Especially where I'm from in Hungary, Budapest. It's so good. Like the city is suitable for people who want to walk, who want to use the public transportation, who want to take their bicycles. Obviously you can own a car, but it's just really difficult to find a parking space, and also it is very expensive. I know that like in New York you don't need to have a car, like public transport is very good there as well. But my Hungarian driver's license, they don't accept it here. So what I have to do is I have to go through the whole ordeal. So it's just like I'm 16 here in the US. So to go to my doctor, get a medical, I have to do the written test, and then I will have a permit, but I can only drive with someone who's over 18 and have to take the road test. So they don't make it easy. The healthcare system.
So I didn't know you have to restart that whole entire process. I was under the impression that you could just take the driving test, and all the steps leading up to it were kind of unnecessary. Honestly, I feel like coming from Europe to the USA, it's worth it. It's worth it to get your American driver's license because it's so much easier to get an American license than a European license. Not only is it easier, but it's cheaper as well. It's a much, much quicker process. So, especially being in the US where you need a car, I think it's well worth the investment, so to speak. Now, when I went to the Netherlands, I'm not gonna lie, I thought about getting my license, but then I was like, well, I can either get my license for, what is it, probably 2,000 euros, have to take all these driving lessons, so on and so forth, or I can just ride my bike everywhere. I can spend, what did I spend? I think I spent around $120, something like that. $120, $150 at most on a bicycle, a secondhand bicycle. I can ride that bike. If something's too far for me to bike to, I can ride my bike to the bus stop, take the bus for maybe, I don't know, 4 euros, something like that. A little bit steep compared to other countries, but I only ride the bus once or twice a month, so okay, 4 euros, take the bus. If something's too far for the bus, I get on the train. And I literally do not need a car throughout that whole entire process. And living in Europe literally just flipped the way I think in regards to cars. Because I used to be a car fanatic. I was the kind of person who wanted 5, 10, 15 cars. I wanted a whole collection. Now I've come to realize that cars are more often than not liabilities. Not just in the financial sense, but from a convenience standpoint. Because when you're having to find parking, you're having to pay for parking. Oh, now someone's broken into your car. Now somebody rear-ended your car while it was parked, hit and run. Those are all liabilities that you don't have to worry about when you have a robust and extensive public transit system. The US does not have that in most places. And in the places where you do have access to that, you have a very high cost of living. So for most Americans, it's actually a lot cheaper to live in a small town or a suburban town and just have a car than it is to live in a big city like New York, or San Francisco, Boston, Chicago, etc., and use public transit. As sad as it may seem, you're probably wondering, well, what about Americans who are poor? Yeah, that's why so many Americans are struggling. It's because they don't have another choice.
System here is absolutely effed up. I've never seen such a bad system before. In Hungary, we have universal healthcare, and you can also have private healthcare, which is much more expensive than universal healthcare. It blows my mind that you have to pay thousands of dollars a month, and then you go to like a dermatologist, you have to pay like $400 out of pocket. Like it's crazy. And I'm not saying that universal healthcare is the answer, and I'm not saying that that system doesn't have its flaws. It definitely has, but the healthcare system in the US is not a good system at all.
Okay, I literally cannot for the life of me understand why Americans think the US healthcare system is better than pretty much any European healthcare system. The life expectancy rates do not lie. Europeans are living longer. They are living longer than Americans, almost across the board, if not across the board. So, I mean, look, to her point, universal healthcare is not perfect. There are oftentimes long wait times, and if you don't have a very, very urgent issue, then you might be put on that wait list for a long time. But to her point, there are also private options. If something is that urgent, you can spend the extra money. To me, when we think about the land of the free, freedom implies options. You have more options. A lot of Americans, just like I was talking about with the car dependency thing, they don't have the option.
Another thing that is definitely different, religion in Eastern Europe is crucial. Obviously, there are people who don't believe in religion and don't believe in God. Europe, it's still like that old school religion, so you actually have churches. It's not like a part of a strip mall. Like, it just blew my mind how like people can just start churches here. It's in like a plaza, you know, like it was very, very strange for me. My church in my town is older than the United States. I'd like to end it on a lighter.
That's crazy. That's crazy. That's something that kind of blew my mind being in Europe as well, was realizing that some of the buildings I would see had literally been there since before the US became a country. Insane.
Note, I was flabbergasted when I first saw pizza dipped into ranch. And now I can't live without it. Ranch is the best thing that the US has ever given me.
So I'm not a very big ranch person. I'm vegan, but they have vegan ranch. I'm not too fond of it, I would say. I'll have it with some things, but I don't think I've ever had pizza with ranch. That honestly does not sound appealing to me. But to each their own. On to the next video. Testing tap water as a European in America. Okay, so this right here is very accurate. I remember the first time my Dutch girlfriend came to visit me in Texas. Now, mind you, this is before I had gone to the Netherlands. So I wasn't really privy to the fact that people there can just drink the tap water. Maybe I'd heard of it in passing, but it was just a concept to me, not a reality. So she came to Texas, and one of the first things I remember her saying was, I want to try some of the tap water. I was like, why? What do you want to try the tap water for? I mean, I don't drink the tap water. I pretty much always avoid tap water if there's another option. But she was like, I want to try the tap water. I was like, okay, go ahead and get you a cup. And she filled the cup up from the kitchen sink, and she drank it, and she had a very similar reaction to that. It was one of those. It was one of those. And that was the last time she inquired about the American tap water. Unsurprisingly, because she said it tasted kind of like sewage. Now, again, I haven't really had a lot of American tap water throughout my lifetime because I always just got water from the fridge or from a bottle. But when I went to the Netherlands and I tasted the tap water there, I understood why she thought the American tap water tasted like sewage. It was because the Dutch tap water doesn't really have a taste. It tastes good, if anything. I'd say it tastes a lot better than bottled water. That American tap water is not the same. And actually, fun fact, recently in the city that I grew up in, Lewisville, Texas, they had a boil order for the water. I don't know if I've ever heard of this happening in Europe. I'm sure it has, I just didn't hear of it. Basically, that's where the water becomes contaminated and you have to boil all water before using it. And we've seen that happen in Flint, Michigan as well. I want to say for at least a year, they didn't really have drinkable tap water. It was just boil order. The water would come out brown and all types of weird colors. I don't know why in the self-proclaimed wealthiest country on the planet, they can't figure out something as simple as water. It's no wonder why American healthcare and the urban planning is so bad. It's because they can't even figure out water. On to the next video. 3 culture shocks I had as a European visiting the US. And this one's muted for copyright purposes. Let me fill it up for you, ma'am. No thanks, I don't want another one. It's free refills. Yeah, those free refills, that is a thing. And I will say that is one thing that I do like about the US, especially in regards to water, because as you can probably see throughout this video and my other videos, I drink a lot of water. I drink a lot of water throughout the day, probably at least 3 liters at this point. So I love being able to not just get free refills, but actually bring my own water bottle to the restaurant. I used to carry around a gallon jug with me everywhere I went, and it was nice to be able to take that with me. Now, the flip side of this is that because food is generally not very profitable, oftentimes European restaurants profit off of the drinks. So they profit off of the drinks, therefore they can pay their employees a livable wage. In the US, instead of profiting off of the drinks, and again, the food isn't really much of an option because food is generally not that profitable, they profit off of the labor. They profit off of the labor. That is why you see servers making $2.13 an hour. They rely on tips to cover that gap. So even though you're technically getting free refills, you're not really getting free refills because that 20% tip that you're leaving, that's where you pay for the refills. Can I have eggs, bacon, and fries, please? Sure, how would you like your eggs? For easy, sunny side up. Wait, what's the culture shock there? I'm confused. What am I missing there? Do you not have that option at European restaurants? Are the dishes not customizable? I'm so confused. I didn't really go out to eat a whole lot in Europe, by the way. But I would have thought that you could get your eggs done a certain way. Come to think of it, do they even have breakfast restaurants in Europe? Because in the US, my first job was actually at this restaurant called IHOP, International House of Pancakes. They also have a similar restaurant called Denny's and another one called Waffle House. All of these places, you can get breakfast food, at least American breakfast food, where you get bacon, eggs, grits, pancakes, what else? Maybe biscuits, things of that nature. Just traditional American breakfast foods. But I guess in Europe, in some countries, they don't even really eat breakfast. I think I read that in Italy, people literally just have a piece of bread and some coffee every morning. In the Netherlands, people might have a piece of white bread with chocolate sprinkles on it, hagelslag. So I guess you wouldn't really go to a restaurant to get those things, but maybe in some of the bigger cities, you have access to restaurants with, I guess, American breakfast food or maybe English breakfast food. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. And let me know what the culture shock here is because it's going way over my head. Thank you. Bye. No, that's crazy. That is crazy. Again, the reason why you're expected to tip is because they're making $2.13 an hour. So just think of it like instead of paying for the refills one at a time, you're just paying for it with your tips. So when you really think about it, you're kind of breaking even.